Hi, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and start going live. It's 9:15. I understand a few people had problems logging in, so I apologize about that. I think it's some people's firewalls and security walls that aren't letting you get into it. Anyhow, we're going to go ahead and go live. The session is recorded as well, so that way, if anyone would like to watch it afterwards, you're welcome to as well. Uh, the session should take us, just so you know, about 35, 40 minutes to get through. And if you have any questions, please, by all means, you'll see the chat button down there. We sent a few messages out. I asked everybody to check in with the city you're in and state you're in. I see that we have people in here from New Orleans, Louisiana. That's where I'm broadcasting from as well. I see Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, Los Angeles, California, Orlando, Florida. Good deal. So we have plenty of cities and states, seems out there. So great. Thank you very much and welcome, folks. As you see on this slide, you'll see all my contact information at the bottom. Also, I'm on LinkedIn. If we're not linked up, please, by all means, look me up and let's link up because I send a lot of messages out and a lot of postings through LinkedIn as well. As we all know, today we'll be talking about complying with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers EM 385 a 24-hour fall protection standard, okay? 24-hour competent person fall protection requirements that just actually recently went into effect. And we'll discuss that as we go through this presentation. Folks, like I said, if you have any questions, just feel free to message them in. I'll be glad to read them out, and then we'll go ahead and discuss them as well. Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsor. We've been fortunate. Complete Filter is a here in New Orleans is a filter company. They provide water filters, oil filters, air filters to industrial employers as well as government agencies and commercial employers as well. So feel free to give them a buzz if you have any needs or if you have any of your equipment operators or mechanics and or procurement and you're looking for any type of new filtration systems. Feel free to give them a call. Glenn and his team over there, a really great group of guys, and they've been funding some of these training sessions for us. Okay. Folks, like we said, we're going to be discussing, this is what we're going to be discussing. It's going to be the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're going to be talking about contracting with the Corps and also contracting on military projects where the Corps standard will be followed as well. Just basically, first of all, caution, right? Is anytime we fail to comply with the corporate standards, safety standards, OSHA standards, with any of the standards, basically our employees are at risk of getting hurt. Any type of injury, illness, or fatality, and then of course it may also affect our money, right? It may affect our contract as well. So always to be cautious about it. Anybody that I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet in person or online, here are my training credentials. Here's my work experience and my contact information. You'll see up top there's the website for Global ERA, which is Global Educational Resource Alliance, which is us here in New Orleans. We're also the host site for Mid-South OSHA Training Institute out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana as well. And as you notice at the bottom, I've got 15 years experience, plus or minus. A lot of train-to-trainer, write a lot of curriculum for OSHA training institutes, deliver the materials well, do a lot of competent person training, train-to-trainer courses as well, and then a lot of consulting for clients as well. Okay, so just so as we discuss anything over the next 30, 40 minutes, you see where my work experiences come from. And then, folks, like I said, I'm with Global Educational Resource Alliance. We are the host training site in New Orleans for Mid-South OSHA Training Institute. And then also we are an accredited training sponsor also for NCCER. We do training for crafts anywhere from crane, rigging to scaffolding coating. Also a lot of safety training as well, okay? And then pipeline operator qualifications. Here's just a list of some of the services that we offer, folks. Feel free to check it out on the internet. If you'd like us to mail you a brochure, just please email me all your contact information. I'll be glad to email you a brochure as well. Okay, it'll be this brochure, and it also shows all the OSHA training classes that we will be offering. Some of them we're already offering, and then the ones that we will be offering. Also, if you look on this slide here, you'll see that we've got some line items either outlined in red, and then we also have the one highlighted in yellow. The ones outlined in red, basically, they're the trainer courses, and you'll see how they come into play when we get a little bit further down in this presentation with a requirement to have adult training skills. for a train-to-trainer for fall protection, and as per ANSI, and then also you'll see that fall protection, that OSHA 3115 on your right-hand side that's highlighted in yellow and outlined in red. That 3115 is going to come in play because of what the core requirements are now as per ANSI and how the Corps is interpreting it, especially primarily the office out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which seems to be, in my opinion, one of the innovators for USACE, and it's one of the organizations or one of the regional offices that tend to be on top of their standards and get the rest of the country going. Okay, here you go, folks. So before we move into the actual fall requirements, I want to put a few things in perspective, right? Here, this slide that you see, we're going to talk about each section of it very briefly. Basically, when the OSHA standards were established, when OSHA was established in 1970 and went into effect in 1971, OSHA had 2 years to put the laws in the books, right? All of the standards and all of the CFRs that an employer must follow in order to protect the health and safety of their employees. Well, standards are looked at in one of multiple ways. First of all, it may be a government standard. It may be an agency like OSHA, like NIOSH for our health, right? The EPA for our environmental, could be DOT, the Department of Transportation, Department of Energy, U.S. Coast Guard, could be the Bureau of Labor Management or Bureau of Labor Statistics. Basically, the agencies that tell us how many jobs hired, how many jobs fired, how many employees lost a left eye in 2016, how many employees lost a right index finger in July of 2014, different items like that, okay? And then alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and then any other federal or state law that may apply as well. And then here's some examples right here, the 3 OSHA standard books, OSHA 1910, 1926, and 1915 through 20, which is the maritime. Can you tell me, folks, could you just give me a quick poll and let me know if you use the OSHA standard books or if you use the OSHA internet as far as for regulations and standards? Could you go ahead and chime in? Okay, good. Okay, so some of you have, okay. Okay, book, okay, internet, regs to go. Okay, great. Well, so as most of us know, right, there are different options. There are different options for getting to the standards, and that's great. We also do a lot of online. We're starting to do a lot of online advanced search webinars, showing people how to maneuver through the regs quite a little bit easier. So feel free to chime in on any of those or log in if you ever get the opportunity to. Okay. So here's a perfect example. That was the OSHA standards. Here's NIOSH, the Center for Disease Control. I tell people anytime it's related to our health, right? Respiratory, vision, chronic illnesses, hazardous materials like silica, lead, asbestos. The Center for Disease Control is usually just putting a directive out on it, and then OSHA will either adopt it or they will go ahead and reference it back to NIOSH. Okay, and as you see, NIOSH also does the health and safety now. They're kind of encroaching more on the health and safety side as OSHA encroaches more on the health side, which is great. I think it gives us more protection as employees and in the workplace, and as employers, it gives us more directives and more resources as well. Okay, in addition to the OSHA standards, they also incorporate by reference. If you look at the bottom of the screen here, these are all your standard numbers, and if you go to them, basically it incorporates by reference items like issues like groups like consensus groups, like NFPA or National Electric Code, ANSI, as many of us know. So many different consensus groups there. Also API, American Petroleum Institute, now NCCER and NCCCO for our crane standards. Compressed Gas Association, American Welding Society, maybe unions not necessarily referenced in the consensus standard, but they are in the 1910, not in the 1910 incorporated by reference, but they are a consensus group, and then of course ASSE, ANSI, and National Safety Council as well. Okay, here's some examples of them. Now the new crane requirements, and this has been actually goes into effect in 2017 of November, and it's been in effect with the EM 385 for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers since 2014, where construction crane operators for mobile cranes and tower cranes must be certified. Okay, so we're going to be doing a webinar on that as well, so we'll make sure that you get some. We'll make sure that you all get an invite to that webinar as well. Okay. And then, of course, incorporate by reference also, like we know, ANSI, and then, of course, NFPA, right? Life Safety Code, Arc Flash, tells us how to govern exits, stairwells, emergency lighting, whatever the case may be, okay? So that's just an example of some consensus standards. And then of course, last of all, proprietary standards. And proprietary standards can be anything from our own corporate health and safety plan, our clients, our competitors, anything the manufacturer tells us. The manufacturer of chemicals, materials, equipment, if they give us any warnings, any instructing use, okay, or any labels at all, we must follow them. We must adhere to them, especially if they're required. And then, of course, the USACE EM385. If you notice, we put it under proprietary. The reason being that the only people that comply or must comply with the USACE EM385 is going to be people who contract with the federal government. They're basically contracting primarily with United States Army Corps of Engineers, USACE, of course, or U.S. military branch. And I'll show you how that comes into play in just a moment. And I'll show you how that comes into play. So this is a perfect example, right? It may be your corporate health and safety plan or your client's health and safety plan that you must follow. It could be manufacturer specs, like let's say the perfect example is this Toyota forklift here, the operator manual, all the warning labels and instruction labels that come with it as well. Also, it could be ladder use, right? There you see your caution signs, what we can do, what we must do, and what we cannot do as well, as far as labeling and instructions. And of course, like I said, your Army Corps 385. And here you go. If you see, it's a 930-page publication. The most recent edition was the release on 30 November 2014. And if you look, folks, if you look at this window right here, where it says applicability on the left-hand side, paragraph 2, you'll note that it says we've got it highlighted in red, which it states that it applies to U.S. Army Corps of Engineer headquarters and all of their districts. But you'll also notice that in yellow we highlighted where it says applicability extends to occupational exposure for missions under the command of the Chief of Engineers, whether accomplished by military, civilian, or contractor personnel. So most of the military branches, or all of the military branches, have adopted and follow the USACE EM385 for their civilian contractors. Okay, and so that's where the resource comes from. So perfect example, right? We'll wind up having core contractors, and then we may have USACE contractors as well for military following the USACE standards. And then if you notice here down at the bottom, and I'll just do a quick run through of this, anyone that's enlisted, I see that we have some military personnel online. I think many of you had problems getting on or weren't able to get on. I apologize about that. But here at the bottom, if you notice, are the military standards. And these folks, anybody who's online right now that is not military, these do not pertain to you. This is strictly for personnel that's in the military, and that is their safety standards. Any contractor that works with the military will be following the USACE EM385. They may also reference their own standards for military personnel, but the guideline is going to be the EM385 and, of course, the OSHA standards and any other government standard that should apply. Okay. Okay, so just a quick example, right, of military, and to show everyone the commitment that the military has to health and safety. Here is the U.S. Army, the CP12 program, which is their occupational health and safety program. It's a tiered or step-level program. Also, you see the Air Force, right, same thing, safety center courses with the Air Force as well. And then, of course, the Naval Safety Center is here. And then the Marines, even though the Marines are a branch of the Navy, they do have their own safety division. It's a CMC safety division. And then, of course, here is the U.S. Coast Guard, which is the Human Resources and Safety group for the U.S. Coast Guard. Okay, folks? So I just kind of wanted to put that out there and let everybody know what standards we have to work with, and then, of course, where the challenge comes in when we're trying to figure out what standard to apply. And bottom line, the standard that we apply, that we always apply, is the most stringent, okay? And oftentimes, in this case, it's going to be the USACE EM385, which is probably going to be the most stringent for any civil contractors. Okay, folks, so let's go ahead and talk about the 24-hour competent fall protection requirements that we were discussing, okay? And just so we're on the same page, this is based on the language from the EM385, and this is also based on the language of conversations with certain of our clients, and also with that they have referenced and sent us correspondence from the Corps, delineating and annotating what information they needed and how they needed to make sure that they complied with these fall standards. So here we go. We're back at the EM385. where, like I said, it's a 930-page document. The last revision was 2010, and it was the prior revision, and this last revision was 2014. Was November 30, 2014 was the published date. And as I stated, you look at the left-hand side, you'll see the paragraph of what it applies to and what it applies to. And then, of course, you can get it in a hardback book as well. So you have it in PDF, you have it in a hardback book. And if anyone does not have it by PDF, just feel free to Google USACE EM385 and then PDF, and you should be able to pull it up. And like I said, you're looking for the 2014 revision. If you have problems finding it, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to send you a link on it, okay? So I'm happy to send you a link or happy to send you the PDF. So, like I said, you can have it electronic or you can have it hard book or softback. And then this is just an extract from Section 21 of the Fall Protection Standard, and this is specific to competent persons. So if you look on your left-hand side, and you'll notice that we pretty much have everything outlined in red in order to make it easier to process through this webinar. Competent person for fall protection, right? That's CP. What are they responsible for? They're responsible for the immediate supervision and implementation and monitoring of the fall protection program, right? They have to be trained to an acceptable level described in 21C. So basically, this is what happens is if you have employees that have any risk of a fall, if they're on a ladder, if they're on a scaffold, if they're on any elevated work surface, if they're in fall protection for any reason, and then you're most likely going contractors, you're most likely going to have a 24-hour competent person on each site of that facility. And not only that, but let me give you an example. You may have a military facility, let's say Fort Hood, and you may wind up having in Fort Hood, you may wind up having 4 groups. And if that supervisor doesn't visit all 4 areas, if you have a separate supervisor for all 4 areas, you're probably going to need a 24-hour competent person in each of those areas, because the only way you can do immediate supervision is that you're actually assigned to work in that work area. Does that make sense, folks? Okay, good. Yeah, absolutely. Can anybody who is online, can you go ahead and let me know if you have multiple competent persons for the same company on the same either military site, let's say, or construction site? Okay, good. Okay, yeah. So a few of you say that it's multiple, right? So absolutely, because if the way I look at it is if I'm assigned to a group and I have 5 groups out there and I never see the other 4 groups, it's impossible for me to have immediate supervision, right, over those employees. Okay, great. That's why it's so important to make sure that we comply and we have enough people, 24-hour competent person trained. So if you look on your right-hand column now, you look at 21C4. This is from the EM385, right? Remember, this is from the Army Corps Standard. It says that a competent person for fall protection, competent person shall be trained by a competent person trainer or a qualified person trainer. And then they reference ANSI Z359.2, which is the Fall Protection Program Standard for training. And I'm going to show you that because we actually have that in this presentation. And then look right below and look at the note, please, and you'll see where it says that this requirement is going to go into effect 18 months after the publication of this document. That's why this did not go into effect until 2016, June of 2016. We started seeing the scramble around here from various clients that were having some issues. We started seeing the scramble around here right around probably June or July, when jobs started getting shut down or when contractors were told that they couldn't return to the site until they had the 24-hour person, competent person for each, for each group, especially for people who are governed out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That district in the Galveston district, we noticed that it uptrended more in Texas more than anything else. I've had various people tell me that it's because of a severe fall fatality that was there, but I'd be inclined to think that may have also added to it. But ultimately, it's a requirement, right? It's been put into the EM385. Now this is the new safety policy for any new contracts. So anybody working on an old contract that's working off of the 2010 EM385 did not have the 24-hour competent person requirement. The 24-hour competent person requirement came into effect with this new, like I said, with the 2014 revision. Okay, so it's any new contracts, and now we're seeing. Since we're seeing more and more new contracts coming up, this is where we're seeing this come into play now. So we're talking, you saw there that the core is referencing the ANSI Z 359.2. Here you go, folks. Here is what the ANSI 359.2 looks like. Okay, I have found it on the internet and a few different websites, and then also you can go ahead and go to ANSI's website and purchase it as well. All right, and we're just going to talk about the extract off of 2 pages regarding, we're going to talk about the ones related to, first of all, ANSI competent person training. And ANSI competent person training, this is the direct extract now from the ANSI standard. And basically, this is what it says, right? That a competent person trainer, you know, for training, okay, competent person trainer, right? The competent person trainer has to have a working knowledge of applicable fall protection regulations, standards, and equipment and systems. And after I show you both of these slides, I'm going to show you how we've seen that the Corps has interpreted these standards, okay? These ANSI standards. So let me start over. I apologize. The competent person trainer shall have a working knowledge of applicable fall protection regulations, standard equipment, and systems. Also, the competent person trainer has to be familiar with typical fall hazards, right? And the equipment's going to be used in the industry that he or she instructing. So if I'm instructing on, let's say, using lifelines, or I'm instructing on using personal fall arrest or guardrails, and then I have to have that working knowledge of that equipment. Okay. Also, the training provided by the competent person trainer has to be appropriate to that specific industry. So what are we talking about now? Is it general industry? Is it construction? Is it maritime? Is the work being done over water? Is it being done in excavations? So basically that's what we're talking about, okay? It's going to be specific to the industry of the services that are being rendered by the work group. And then ultimately the competent person trainer shall evaluate the fall protection and rescue knowledge and skills of the competent persons. Okay, so these are the requirements to be the trainer. And then here is the ANSI train-to-trainer requirements. Training for qualified persons, right? Now what we're talking about is actually to train a qualified person, a train-to-trainer. Training for qualified person trainers, competent person trainers, and competent rescue trainers. All right, trainers shall have documented experience, knowledge, training, education equal to or greater to than the category that the person is going to be training. So basically, if I'm training 24-hour competent person, I must have been trained in 24-hour competent person. I can't train a program that I've never been trained in. This is what ANSI is saying. And then I'm going to show you where the Corps is actually following this as well. And then also, trainers shall have documented experience, skills, and adult training methods. So documented knowledge and experience, what are we talking about? We're talking about our resume, right? What fall protection experience do we have? And then also, and we're even getting the impression now that it's what training and fall protection experience do I have? And then, of course, skills and adult education methods as well, right? Adult learning skills, basically. And I'll show you what we're talking about in a second. And then trainers shall also continue to have their fall protection and rescue education. So basically, they have to maintain, trainers have to maintain continuing education credits as well. Okay. So here you go, folks. Let me show you what this is. All right. Can everybody see this? Okay. Can you also see my cursor and my mouse moving around the screen? Okay. Great. Okay, so let me walk you through it and let me explain what this is here. What this is this is the extract from 2 emails from 2 different clients that we have that we put together to make one document, where the Corps was requiring prime contractors and the Corps was requiring subcontractors to have a 24-hour competent person in place. Let me give you some background here. What happened was we have 2 different companies. They both do construction services in military bases. Both companies were not allowed to return to work. Actually, I'm sorry, I apologize. 3 companies that were not allowed to return to work until they had the competent person training. Well, 2 of the companies went through competent person training with us. They were fine. And a 3rd company actually went through competent person training with another organization, which is I think they have got a great training program. The problem was their trainer did not have, the trainer did not have one of these 2 courses here. The OSHA 3110 or the OSHA 3115, which is the OSHA standards course for fall protection. And I'm about to show you what that is, okay? So what we've done is that when these clients had problems, these were the list of items that were sent from the Corps that were sent to our clients in order for us to go ahead and help them meet the standard. So number one, and if you look anywhere we see para and then 3381, 3382, 81, and then 3291, if you notice, let me go back. These are from these standards that we just talked about, right? The ANSI Competent Person Training Standard for ANSI and the ANSI Train-the-Trainer requirements. Okay, so this is where the Corps went ahead and basically incorporated by reference, and they went ahead and referenced back these 4 ANSI standards, and these were the requirements that they had, and then they added a couple of things. Okay, and we'll discuss that. So basically training, right? Example, competent person certificate. So if I'm training competent person, I must have been competent person trained. But it's not just being competent person trained. I've got to have the same amount of hours. I could not have been 16-hour competent person trained in fall protection or 8-hour competent person fall protection trained, and then start training 24-hour competent person. So if I'm teaching 24, I need to have been trained in 24. Second of all, education, right? Adult teaching certification or train-the-trainer training. So basically 2 things can meet this mark. It can be a train-the-trainer course for fall protection, or it can be having taken maybe possibly your OSHA 500, your OSHA 501, or your 5400, and I had those highlighted in red and outlined in red, and I'll show them to you again in just a moment. Okay. The third is experience. Basically having your resume. How long have you been training? How long have you trained competent person in fall protection classes, right? And how many classes have you trained? So they want to know not only how long have you been training competent person fall protection, but how many classes have you trained? Now, like I said, this is specifically for the Corps. And then not only that, the unofficial opinion that we've gotten and the request that we've gotten is to assure that our training, us as training providers, could demonstrate that we have trained at least 2 years of train-the-trainer for competent person for fall protection. And then last of all is knowledge, right? And an example is 3115 or equivalent course that meets the pertinent requirements of ANSI, right? 3115 or 3110. 3115 is a new 3-day fall protection standard course, and a few years ago the course was called 3110. But what happened? Vamped, and then it was renumbered from 3110 to 3115. So let me go back to knowledge, and let me go back to 32.1. And here you go, 32.9.1. A competent person shall have a working knowledge of applicable fall protection regulations, standards, equipment, and systems. So if you notice in here, nowhere in here does it say that a trainer for the train-the-trainer, okay, had to have or a competent person trainer had to have taken the 3115. No, so at first we felt that the USACE had actually overstated their position. That was our original opinion on it. And then in thinking about it, we kind of got to thinking about it, and this is what we think, and this is our position now, is that applicable fall protection regulations and standards, in our office, we're not aware of any other course other than the OSHA courses that talk specifically about standards. You know, we have a lot of hazard awareness courses, right? We have a lot of hazard awareness classes. We have a lot of technical classes, where hands-on classes, but classes where the actual standards are discussed, we don't see it other than the OSHA programs. So that, therefore, we changed our mind, and then we realized that the Corps didn't overstate their position, that actually they hit the mark. And the mark was that the only way you're going to get that knowledge base on standard and regulation is by taking an OSHA class, because there is no other class that we're aware of, and I'm assuming that they're aware of, that would meet that standard. Okay. Is anybody else familiar that's online with any other courses that that may teach standard only? Not a trainer class. I'm talking about standard, full 3 days of, you know, or more or less, right, of just OSHA standards. No, I didn't think so. I don't know anyone who does. So, okay. So let me give you an example, folks. Okay, and then now what we did is, so keep this in mind, right? Number 1 is training. Number 2 is education. Number 3 is experience. And then number 4 is knowledge, right? So this is what we did. And folks, just so you know, we're rearing up on this thing. I should have you out of here in about the next 5 or 10 minutes, okay? So probably closer to the next 10 minutes, just so you know. So these are the four requirements that have to be met. And let me show you where it is. So here you go. Number one, in order to train, I had to have been 24-hour competent fall protection trained myself. And there you go. So this is one of the people that we recently trained back in the summer. And here's an example of his certificate. One thing I do want to note that we actually got a call that our certificates were not going to be honored because they did not have my signature on them. So if you notice, as my cursor is going around right here, the signature block, we just recently put that signature block in, and then it went ahead and resent out all new certificates. So so you know, I get it, right? They want to have some acknowledgement to assure that somebody signed it. And there you go. So so now we're making sure that all the certificates that roll through our office are actually signed. Okay, and it was easier just to comply, and we get the mechanics of it. So this is number one requirement. The number two requirement is for that person to have either done like a 24-hour competent person fall protection trainer class. Right now they've gone through a train-to-trainer class. And during this class, what we did is we had a few hours of adult teaching principles, curriculum design, PowerPoint development, right? Delivering material, whether it be videos, handouts, fact sheets, to go ahead and make sure that the trainer is ready and equipped to go ahead and train competent persons now. Number three is a resume, and I'm showing you an example of my resume because it's gone so far to where they don't only want the person who's the trainer now, they also want to verify the credentials of the trainer, and this is an example of what I sent to the Corps. And basically where you see I've got outlined in red is basically what they're looking for. They're looking for that experience, right? That competent person fall protection trainer experience. Here you go. My course was actually the trainer course that I took was back in 2013. It's noted on my resume. Here it's noted on my credentials, and here it's noted as my work experience. So the Corps actually I apologize to say the Corps now. Actually, the prime contractors now for the Corps, for 2 Corps projects, actually wanted to see my trainer credentials in place, which are here. But they also wanted to see my experience go back at least 2 years in training trainers. So basically, I showed them where my work experience as these competent person trainers right here go back with this job starting from 2015, and with my previous with the previous organization I was with, going back all the way to 2012. Okay, showing where I trained all of those programs, and that actually met their 2-year standard, or their 2-year requirement. And then the fourth one is basically, like I said, having that trainer class. And here you go. I'm sorry, having a fall protection class. And what they're looking for, you won't find the 3110 anymore. The course doesn't exist. Like I said, it was replaced by the 3115. And the course is roughly $600, regardless of which OSHA training institute you take it through. It has to be the OSHA unofficially, it has to be the OSHA 3115 if it's a course that someone will be taking now. Okay, we do have them here. We're having them anywhere where you see Global Educational Resource Alliance in New Orleans. That's going to be us. We're hosting them here. We also teach for other OSHA training institutes as well. And then there are also courses in Baton Rouge as well, which are directly through Mid-South. So like I said, Mid-South is the training center. It's based out of Baton Rouge. There are classes also held by Mid-South at Mid-South in Gonzales and in Walker, Louisiana. And then we are the host for the greater New Orleans area for Mid-South. Okay, so feel free to go here, folks. One additional thing, anyone who is military, I see we have a good bit of military people on the line, or government employees, please reach out to me before registering. I'm going to get you the contact information for Diana Bro. Diana Bro is the director of the OSHA Training Institute, and there is a 10% discount for military and government employees, okay? So the only thing is, as of right now, you have to contact her until they can actually get a discount code done for all of you to be able to register and get the discount at time of registration. So if anybody's interested in that, please shoot me an email, shoot me a text. I'll have my contact information at the end again, and feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to send you whatever you need, okay? And then here's an example. This is what we were talking about earlier. There's your fall protection class, right, the 3115. This is a list of all the courses that we offer. And if someone doesn't do the adult training in a train-to-trainer program, they will possibly accept these, the OSHA 500, the OSHA 501, the 5400, and the 5600, which are all trainer courses. So they also have that adult teaching, learning, curriculum development, PowerPoint design element in those programs as well. However, I will tell you this, is that I really, really think that they're going to want that train-the-trainer certificate in addition to this. So I think they're going to start tightening up these requirements just a little bit more, especially considering that, as we all know, falls are the #1 killer, right, in construction. So considering that we can never prevent falls are #1 cited and are the #1 killer, and I just see this tightening up rather than loosening up. And then, folks, here you go, right? So when we talked about OSHA standards and what you learn in these classes, right, the 3115, these are all the standards that are addressed, or the majority of the standards that are addressed. Primarily, it's construction, of course, because that's where the greatest risk is, and then general industry, and then some shipyard, being shipyard, maritime, and terminal operations and longshoring as well. Okay, so if anybody wants a copy of this, if you use the OSHA standards frequently and you just want a copy of this fact sheet that we have with all the standard numbers, feel free to reach out, and I'm glad to get you a copy. Okay? Great. Everybody okay? Do we need to clarify any of that for anybody? Because I'm going to recap this right now. We're going to start closing out. As you noticed here, okay. Okay, good. Okay, yeah, you're right. Absolutely correct. It is a lot of information, folks. Like I said, this is being recorded. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to jump on conference calls or speak to anyone individually, anyone in our offices, in order to help this out. All right, and we do offer all of the services that we're mentioning, but like I said, this is just one additional training that we're doing and putting the information out there. Okay, so just to recap what you just saw, right? #1, in order to somebody to be trained as a competent person, their trainer and their trainer's trainer are going to have a competent person certificate at the same level. So if it's 24 hours, it's 24 hours. Adult teaching certification, right, which it could be the trainer course for, like I said, for 24-hour fall protection, and it may be acceptable to only have the 500, 501, 5400, or 5600 that you just saw. And then also at least 2 years experience on that resume doing competent person training. Some people say just doing fall protection training. Some people say doing competent person training. Okay. And last of all, that 3115, right? That OSHA 3115, and that's a 3-day course, the one that I just pointed out to you. Okay. So that's the 4 requirements that are required. If you have any questions, by all means, please feel free to reach out. There's my contact information again. And if I can help you in any way, just let me know. Like I said, I think we're definitely going to see this being pushed more and more because of the significant risk that we have in fall hazards. One last thing, folks, I definitely again would like to give a shout out to Complete Filter. Again, like I said, they're a Wix distributor. They distribute air filters, water filters for air, water, and oil. So please. Give them a shout if you ever need them, or if you need information. Great source. They're a great source also for education if you need it on any type of filtration systems. Okay. And then, folks, if anybody's got any questions or anything, you know our website. If there's my contact information one last time, feel free to call out, text. That's my cell phone number, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions anybody may have. Okay. Does anybody have anything right now that you'd like to ask? And we're going to go ahead and shut out in the next couple of minutes, folks. Yeah, absolutely. So how long does this take, right? So great question. A competent person, 24-hour trainer, you're going to have to do it over the course of 3 days for the trainer. That's correct. And if you move on to the trainer, you're looking at another 1 to 2 days for the trainer. We usually like to do an additional 2 days. There's no time requirement on the trainer portion, but in order to make sure that you get your record keeping straight, have the right documents in place, help you with all the design materials, yeah, I think you're going to need an additional 2 days. So we do a 5-day course here in New Orleans. That's correct. The cost? You're looking at roughly about $2,500 on a trainer course. Like I said, the first 3 days are competent person. The next 2 days are trainer. So it's about $2,500 per person for that 5-day course. That's correct, and that will give you the authorization to train other individuals. And let me clarify something there. Some organizations do a non-compete where the only people you can train are your employees. You know what? We're fine with it. If anyone out there is an independent trainer or if anyone out there does, does the same thing we do, basically trainer for hire, there is no non-compete. You can train whoever you want. Once you go through us, the only thing we'll probably do is do like a requirement, like an 8-hour requirement or something like that of an annual refresher. In order to make sure that trainers are either 1 year or every other year or something like that. We're working on that right now, just to make sure that we stay compliant with the ANSI standards and that we make sure that trainers keep their qualifications up, okay? And changes in the industry. Good. And any other questions, folks? Okay. Well, one last thing I just want to add in, and we didn't put it in this because it's part of a scaffold training that we do, but anybody that has to have a competent scaffold person on site, competent scaffold users or trainers must have at least 8 hours of competent person training. And you'll notice that if you read the USACE standard, you'll see that that's in there as well. Okay, great deal, folks. Well, like I said, I apologize for starting late. I know many of you had problems getting on. Feel free to type in any questions if you have it, or reach out to me, and then we're going to go ahead and mute the webinar, leave it on for the next 5 minutes, just to make sure that we don't have to respond to anybody. Okay? Thank you, folks. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for your time.